It's Wednesday, May 16th. Welcome to CT Pulse on the HAN network. I'm Kate Chaplinsky, and just a bit later in the show, Republican State Senator Tony Wong joins me to discuss casino and sports gambling in addition to the upcoming elections. But first, on the phone, we have Darien 1st Selectman Jamie Stevenson, who will primary for the office of Lieutenant Governor after earning just under 20% of delegate support, exceeding the 15% requirement at the GOP convention over the weekend. Now, Jamie, you will be challenged by Senator Joe Markley, who earned about 53% of support, and New Britain Mayor Aaron Stewart, who received about 26% of delegate support. Now, first, Jamie, I just want to say congratulations on earning enough support to primary. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience of going to the convention as a candidate trying to drum up support like that?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Kate, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. The convention process, I've been to conventions before, so thankfully I knew what to expect, but certainly have not been there as a statewide candidate. It was rigorous to say the least. You know, I've spent the last several months traveling across the state of Connecticut, which was an absolute pleasure to really meet the great people in such diverse communities across Connecticut. And everybody came together last weekend up at Foxwoods, you know, about 1,160 delegates to that convention who were casting their votes for all of the constitutional offices. So it was literally 2 days of, you know, one-on-one contact with those 1,160 delegates to try and earn their support for my bid for Lieutenant Governor. And I will say that we went in with the goal of achieving our 15% to be able to move on to a primary, and we exceeded our goal. So at the end of the day, my team and I, we were really very, very happy, exhausted, but very happy and excited to be moving forward.
Now, Jamie, I just want to ask, what is pushing you to want to pursue this to the August primary and keep campaigning?
Sure. So, you know, the convention process really brings together a very small, concentrated microcosm of Republican electorate. And I believe that I have a message that will resonate much better with the larger Republican electorate, and then again in November with the electorate in general, both you know, Republicans, unaffiliated, and even moderate Democrats. I believe I have the right message for why my candidacy for Lieutenant Governor will be of great value to the next leadership team in Hartford.
Now, Jamie, you mentioned your story and you think it will be compelling to other people. I mean, is there at all an uphill battle as the first selectman of a Fairfield County town, which people have certain ideas about in other parts of the state? Is it difficult to get your message out to those other areas?
You have to get past sort of the veneer, if you will. There's no question that candidates, at least on the Republican side, I don't see this on the Democratic side, which is interesting. On the Republican side, candidates from Fairfield County, there's a bit of a bias against us. But when I have an opportunity to share with people that where I live really tells nothing about the person that I am, where I've come from, how I've gotten to be where I am, and my family's success. You know, the message that I can share is a message that I'm so proud of and that everybody can really relate to. It's about family, it's about hard work, it's about education, and seizing the opportunities that come before you. So, you know, it takes me a little bit to tell that story, but I'm very proud to tell that story.
Now, Jamie, Mayor Aaron Stewart, who will also be challenging you, commented to the media after Markley won that endorsement, basically saying that 2 white men at the top of the ticket wasn't what the Connecticut GOP needs. What's your reaction to that? Do you agree with that at all? What do you think?
Oh, you know, I think sometimes, listen, I am a little bit older than Aaron, and I realize that sometimes we have to digest our experiences before we should comment publicly about things. You know, I'm sure that Aaron was somewhat disappointed. She made the decision on Friday to change her race from governor to lieutenant governor, likely because she wasn't she wasn't able to secure the kind of support for governor that she had hoped, and maybe she thought that dropping into the lieutenant governor race would be easier for her, and the outcome wasn't necessarily as favorable as she might have liked. My feeling is that it's not at all about the appearance of the candidates, their gender. It's all about the experience and really who are the right people. What skills do you bring to the table to form a strong ticket that's going to help the Republican team from top to bottom get elected? So, I'm not sure that it was the right thing to say, but I understand why she likely was a bit disappointed.
Right. Now, Jamie, is the campaigning underway for you? Do you have any upcoming events planned right now?
We are in fundraising mode. Because I am registered to participate in the Clean Elections program, I need to raise $75,000 in $100 or less increments, which is certainly no easy task, especially when I'm committed to putting my day job as first selectman as my top priority. I promised the people of Darien I would do that, and I hold true to that. So we're raising our money, and we need to do that by June 12th in order to be able to move forward. So yes, the campaign continues in, it's full speed ahead, and I really look forward to folks supporting me both with their voices and with contributions if they can.
And Jamie, I just want to ask, what was your reaction to the outcomes of some of the other races at the convention, particularly the governor's seat?
I think the outcome of the governor's race was as predicted. We knew we were going to be headed to a primary. I think there was likely a little bit of a surprise with Steve Obsitnik prevailing over Peter Lamage. I think that was a very good outcome. Quite frankly, it shows that people are interested in folks who have business experience. But we're likely going to have at least a 6-way primary. We've got a couple of self-funders who are collecting their signatures right now. So I think the outcome was as everybody predicted it would be.
And Jamie, before we let you go, what's the reaction been like in your town of Darien?
People are very excited about it. I think they realize that, listen, it's not just me here in Darien. We have a great, very successful team. We just voted on a budget on Monday night that is a mill rate decrease for the first time in anybody's memory. We are a successful government here in Darien, and I think people understand that the skills that got us to that place here are so desperately needed in Hartford, and I have great support because of that.
All right. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today. I know you're busy, and we really appreciate it and wish you the best of luck in August.
Thank you very much, Kate. I appreciate being on your show today.
All right. Thank you. And we are going to take a break. Come back with State Senator Tony Wong just after this.
Want a new experience in car buying? Scap Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. We are Connecticut's Wrangler headquarters. Come visit our new Ram Truck Center. Our Ram trucks get the job done with unparalleled style and performance. Call, click, or stop in to find the new Jeep, Chrysler Dodge car, minivan, or Ram truck that you've been looking for. Family owned and operated for over 50 years. Save thousands right now at the Spring Sales Event, now through April 30th.
Winter's finally in the rearview mirror, and the Dock Shop is ready to help you usher in our favorite season, summer. We've got new offerings in our usual products: clothing, jewelry, home decor, fishing tackles, and boating supplies. And now the Dock Shop does in-house laser engraving. You can add a name, a boat name, latitude, longitude, an image to drinkware, serving platters, boards, or decorative accessories. No minimum, fast turnaround. Stop in today and start your summer. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, dockshop.com.
If you've ever thought about owning a motor coach or learning about what it's like to travel the open road in superior style and comfort, then contact Dave's RV Center in Danbury, Connecticut. Offering the best quality Class A motorhomes from Newmar, travel trailers and fifth wheel lines from Surveyor, and a toy hauler line from Work and Play. Choose from Newmar's Gas Line, Base Star and Canyon Star, or from Newmar's Diesel Line, Ventana and Dutch Star. And with unparalleled service and maintenance, Dave's RV is committed to keeping you and your motor coach safely on the road and enjoying it to the fullest. Stop by their showroom, 2 Industrial Plaza Road, Danbury, Connecticut, or call 877-483-3866. If you've ever thought about
And so are the deals at Honda of Westport's Dream Garage Spring Event. See and test drive the all-new 2018 Honda Clarity 110 MPG plug-in hybrid sedan. Stop in today and see why we've been named Deal Rater's Dealer of the Year for the 4th year running. Honda of Westport, where peace of mind is part of the deal. Get a fresh start to the new year by shaking up your meal routine. Walter Stewart's Market is your local source for a delicious selection of fresh and convenient salad shakers, like Southwest salad with chicken, Cobb with organic chicken, Power Vegan with fruit and quinoa, Greek salad with tabbouleh, and grilled shrimp with hominy. Grab one from our salad case or order from our deli today. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
Dr. Stephen Molinaro and Peter Healy of Family Practice Dentistry and Laser Dental Care have served Ridgefield for over 22 years. Experienced staff offer gentle drillless techniques, preventative care, and cosmetic procedures in a relaxed environment. Grateful for the community's trust and support through the years, new patients and their families are welcome. Call today.
I've had Newtown Savings Bank my whole life. You don't have to worry about talking to a machine. You're talking to real people. You're getting real help. I'm banking local, and I'm loving it.
Spring is in bloom, and so are the deals at Honda of Westport's Dream Garage Spring Event. See and test drive the all-new 2018 Honda Clarity 110 MPG plug-in hybrid sedan. Stop in today and see why we've been named Deal Rater's Dealer of the Year for the 4th year running. Honda of Westport, where peace of mind is part of the deal. Get a fresh start to the new year by shaking up your meal routine. Walter Stewart's Market is your local source for a delicious selection of fresh and convenient salad shakers, like Southwest salad with chicken, Cobb with organic chicken, Power Vegan with fruit and quinoa, Greek salad with tabbouleh, and grilled shrimp with hominy. Grab one from our salad case or order from our deli today. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
Dr. Stephen Molinaro and Peter Healy of Family Practice Dentistry and Laser Dental Care have served Ridgefield for over 22 years. Experienced staff offer gentle drillless techniques, preventative care, and cosmetic procedures in a relaxed environment. Grateful for the community's trust and support through the years, new patients and their families are welcome. Call today.
Welcome back to CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski, and joined now by a friend of the show and perhaps the nicest guy in politics, that's State Senator Tony Wong, who we always love to have on. Senator
it's a
Wong.
pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so I need to ask first, before we get into politics, the GOP convention, you were just at a meeting of the EOC, Emergency Operations Center in Newtown, following this crazy storm we had yesterday. What's the latest?
It was a devastating storm. It was so unexpected, the fact that I think at one moment last night, nearly 75% of the town was out of power. But we had some devastating tree damages. There is really a talk about a possible tornado that swept through that northeast Fairfield County region, and the devastation is remarkable. We have gigantic trees that have just been flattened. You have roads that are impassable. You have live wires. So first and foremost is, if your streets are blocked and there are wires anywhere, even if you don't see them, tread very carefully, and personal safety first and foremost. It's not a matter to be taking any risks.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes we see after storms like this is people deciding to drive over wires, thinking that they're just laying there, they're not live. So dangerous.
Stay in the house if you're uncertain. Call your town officials. Call your first responders. Make sure that it is documented. The crews are out there working hard to make sure you're safe. But please, 1,000 ounces of caution to be safe. You don't need any tragedies from this devastating storm.
Yeah, and we are hearing from Eversource that it could be multiple days now without power for some of the folks.
Well, it's very important. I was talking to Eversource and with our town leaders. It's really important to manage expectations. And I think that's all people are asking for, to have a channel of communications to be sure that they can manage. If it means it's going to take 2 or 3 days, people can plan accordingly. Right. But the fact of not knowing is the biggest frustration. And I've implored Eversource to work much harder to let people know that they're working hard and constantly maintain that communications. It's critical.
All right, well, Tony, moving on to politics. Last weekend's GOP convention, what are your reactions to some of the outcomes there, particularly at the top of the ticket?
Well, I think the governor's race has always been an intrigue, being the top of the ticket, but it was also, top heavy with so many candidates. The nomination process is really a tremendous experience from the standpoint of watching delegates get engaged and the vote swapping that goes back and forth, and looking at the 15% margin in which a candidate has to attain in order to qualify for a primary. So it really is a political scientist's dream venue. But that being said, we have Mark Boughton, who is now the party's nominee, but you also have two individuals that met that 15% threshold who have the opportunity, if so they choose, to primary. And that primary is occurring in, I think, the first 2 weeks in August, in which registered Republicans can engage, but it's intrigue continuing because you have two possible independently funded Republicans by the name of Bob Stefanowski and David Stemmerman, who have decided to opt out of the convention process and try to petition. They will need 2% of registered Republicans in the state of Connecticut to sign their signature, validate their names and their addresses to be submitted to each respective town. Only one person has done that in a statewide election, and that is Peter Schiff. So this is an arduous and tedious task, but they've been doing it since the second day of May. So there's a possibility that we may have a minimal of 3 and the possibility of 5, or even Mayor Loretti has talked about possibly petitioning. But it is a yeoman and arduous task. So, but at the end, I always go back to my love of democracy. In growing up where parents escaped communism, and where growing up in a country where martial law was imposed, the idea of a democratic election, people having their say, is one of the greatest beauty of American democracy. It may not always be pretty, and I use beauty as a term, but the beauty of its execution, the beauty of allowing people to participate in their democracy, it's one of the greatest gifts that we have.
Yeah. And I want to ask, with so many candidates, do you know yet who you will support in August?
Every one of those individuals, God bless them for running. It's an arduous task. There are tremendous challenges in the state of Connecticut. And having just passed a bipartisan budget in the General Assembly, we got together and worked together. So I think whoever is going to be the nominee needs to understand that we have significant problems in our state, and not one party will have all the solutions. So there really needs to be a collaboration and a bipartisan effort to that solution. But nonetheless, that being said, the priorities of the candidate that I will look for has to be fiscal accountability. Does that person have the vision and the plan to be able to articulate how the state of Connecticut can manage its budget, manage its spending, manage its revenues to be consistent, sustainable, and predictable into the future? I think the second critical thing that I would look for a candidate is the fact, will that person have a vision and a plan to create jobs and help our businesses? The rankings do not lie. The state of Connecticut is in a malaise, and we need an individual that's willing to create a vision and a plan to create jobs and businesses to help protect our future and the quality of life. And third, I am also looking for an individual that has a sense of compassion, a sense of a community, that we have an important job, and it's one of the greatest gifts that we have, is to represent our community. And that means that the role of government is to ensure that we maintain our infrastructure, that we maintain public safety, but we also have a responsibility to care for those that are most at risk, most vulnerable, protecting our seniors, and respecting and care for the veterans who made the sacrifices. That is a critical role of government. There has to be a complete package, so to speak, but you kind of get a sense when you talk to them, you get a sense when you interact with them. And I think I ask the voters to get engaged and demand accountability from your potentially elected people, and ask if those questions and those value assessments are critical to you. They are to me as a voter.
Yeah. And Tony, you've been an explorer for a while, looking into a run for another office. Anything happening on that front? Do you
I
see a
am
future?
so happy to declare that I am so thrilled and honored to have served as a state senator for the 28th district. I am running for re-election to serve in that role. But the exploratory taught me so much because it made me realize that the challenges that we see in the 28th are very similar throughout the entire state. And that the message is that government needs to understand, listen, and respect the approaches of the households we represent. Whether it be Eastern, Northwestern, or Southwestern Connecticut, the values are the same. Those three fundamentals that I will ask of every gubernatorial candidate are the value assessments of people up and down Main Street that I've talked to. It is about that. It is being able to deliver on those three critical things with a sense of compassion, with a sense of heart, and with a sense of willing to stand for the difficult decisions that need to be made. But I am absolutely thrilled to be running for re-election to be state senator of the 28th district.
We're happy you are here. We can
Thank
say
you.
that. Now let's talk before you mentioned the bipartisan budget, but I also want to talk about sports gambling, because you have not been a proponent of more gambling in Connecticut. So what is your reaction now to the Supreme Court decision? I know Governor Dannel Malloy may call the legislature back in for a special session to discuss this. What's your reaction?
Well, as a person who loves sports and truly value the sportsmanship and the camaraderie and the incredible vision that sports provide for us as a community, I'm troubled by the authorization and in essence the Supreme Court ruling that sports gambling is allowed through various states, because I look at the expansion of gambling as a whole. We look at it as everybody else is doing it, we need the money, let's go do it. But what we need to learn and take a step back from is Australia, another sports craze loving country, adopted universal sports gambling in 2001. And what we have seen as anecdotal data is alarming, is the fact that, as they would say, they have turned the gambleization of sports in Australia in many forms. The first and foremost is the impression among 14 to 25-year-olds is most impactful in sports. And when you leverage gambling into a venue that they're most interested in, you're going to create habitual as well as potentially addicted gamblers to that venue. I think the other part you're going to see is you're going to see sports gambling proliferate in advertising and marketing dollars spent. And what you saw was the fantasy football, the fantasy baseball. It pervades in every ad we see. We saw in Australia that literally proliferated the landscape of marketing that gambling through sports is an acceptable norm of entertainment. It isn't. And ultimately, I think the third is you look at the addiction factor. They had looked at the fact that addiction to gambling in Australia skyrocketed as a result of the acceptance. And you know, the National Council on Problem Gambling said this in essence of sports gambling. It is a gateway drug to other forms of extensive gambling. It takes the innocence of the game and proliferates it into a numbers game. And I think ultimately the last thing I would say my opposition to this is this. We have changed what was a athletic and sportsmanship venue to now possibly be, you're not cheering for the Yankees, you're not cheering for the Red Sox or the Patriots or the Giants anymore. You're cheering for a point spread. You're cheering for the idea that a numbers game is what matters in a sports setting. And that shouldn't be. The integrity of the game. And we also run the last thing, and I know I'm extending my time, is we talk about the proliferation of crime into our sports. When you think of the White Sox, of showless Joe Jackson in the World Series, one of the greatest baseball players in our history, Pete Rose, is banned from the Hall of Fame. We talk about point shavings in basketball and in boxing. Someone just said to me, the idea that if somebody missed a field goal or missed a foul shot or missed a long putt or a short putt, if there was gambling on this, would you have a wonder if perhaps somewhat it might have been influenced? It takes away from the integrity and the sportsmanship of the game. And I don't think it's a path we need to go to. But we're going to do that when we come back to the basis. If you don't have fundamental control over how you spend money and how you manage the people's money as a government, we're going to go through these different avenues of easy money. But as I've learned in gambling repeatedly, the house always wins. The people never do.
That's interesting. It might be an uphill battle for you because, as you said, there's a lot of money that it could bring in, and that's going to be tough to argue against.
It is tough to argue, but we can do better in the state of Connecticut. So they say solve what we need to be able to take care of state government. But we should be supporting technology businesses, softwares, as well as bioscience, genomics, and personalized medicine. We have one of the most innovative advanced manufacturing facilities throughout our state. We have entrepreneurial, innovative small businesses that we should be supporting. It takes hard work. It's not easy money. But those are things that I believe that state government should work with and partner to empower to succeed. Not the simple idea is, I'm going to spend $1 and I'm going to get $1 million. But the fact is, very few people win, and there's a lot of people that are at risk and vulnerable that could be susceptible to addiction. And the tragedies that I've heard is just heartbreaking. Most people don't fully understand that gambling addiction is the highest cause of suicide in mental health issues. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about the societal impact and the tragedies of gambling addiction. It's about time we do. Out of the millions that we spend, even if we pursue that path, okay, I think we have to spend more money to protect those that are infected by gambling addiction.
Now, Tony, based on that, I think I can guess where you stand on MGM Bridgeport potentially being able to come back. There was legislation passed that new casino proposals could be made. Do you have a similar reaction to that plan?
It's actually a very interesting reaction. For me, fundamentally, I'm opposed to any form of gambling expansion in the state of Connecticut. But the state of Connecticut has a very unique relationship with the two tribes because over 20 plus years ago, there was a compact that was reached with Governor Weicker with the two tribes that said, we will allow you to gamble on your tribal land in exchange for a compact that we get 25% of your slot revenues. That has been a tremendous benefit to the state of Connecticut. I don't know where all that money went, but the fact is it didn't go into supporting gambling addiction, but it went into the coffer of the black hole called the state budget. But that being said, what really has precipitated the debate right now is the fact the tribes in a joint collaboration wants to build a casino in East Windsor outside of tribal land. And what has been learned on this compact is the two tribes have a virtual monopoly of gambling initiatives in the state. That there are dollars that are gained from lotteries and Keno, that a portion goes to the tribes. And we could not engage in gambling initiatives without the approval of the tribe. So when the sports gambling came in and the possibility of a request for proposal for other initiatives, unlike in New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, where the state gives licensures based upon an RFP, we are exploring this legislation that you're talking about right now to simply allow an RFP process. We have to address the constitutionality of a monopoly as a result of this compact that is been cautiously worded by the Attorney General to tread very carefully because we have an equal protection, equal access, that if you or anyone else wanted to build a casino, you would be denied that opportunity in the state of Connecticut.
Right.
The other part is if you move toward that bidding process, the tribes could say the compact is null and void and $200+ million that we expect out of our budget completely disappears.
Right.
So it is a complex issue, but the debate on this legislation is to simply allow an RFP process and to challenge the monopolistic control of gambling in the state of Connecticut by the two tribes. It is an issue that a lot of the public don't fully understand, of the degree of control and impact and the depth of the relationship that we have with the tribes in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, you mentioned the bipartisan budget. For you, what are some of the highlights of going through that budget process?
Well, the highlight is the fact that we got a budget.
Yes.
And we got a budget,
True.
but it's amazing what happens before an election year, right? Because last year, when it wasn't, we fought and we stood our ground to nearly October and reached a bipartisan budget simply because 3 Democratic senators voted on a Republican budget. But with that said, we got to a budget this year that made some completed goals that are mutual. One that was we maintain municipal aid to our communities. For the towns that have their budgets set, we have now fully funded them. And we also address educational funding, which we did not do under the governor's draconian measures. So we were able to give some predictability and sustainability to our towns. But we also did some structural changes in the sense of addressing the seniors Medicare program, savings programs. We also restored some healthcare benefits to our valued teachers. So in a way, we did do a lot of things positive without raising taxes, but underneath that, looming, were the debate and fight over possibilities of tolls, possibility of other taxation, increased real estate conveyance taxes. There were so many different issues that were raised that were held at bay because the compromise was those things were not going to be good for the greater good of the state of Connecticut. But make no mistake about it, come this November, those issues will be front and center. Are you looking to a advocacy that says we can live within our means and spend within our means and prioritize how we spend money? Or do we say that we can spend more money, we can tax the people who can afford to do it, and let's make sure we take care of everything that we need? I fundamentally do not believe that the state of Connecticut has a revenue problem. I believe the state of Connecticut has a spending priority problem. And that is the difference between myself and maybe my other counterpoints. I believe that with discipline and with priorities, we have more than enough money to care for those that we are respected and elected to represent.
Now, Tony, last question before we let you go. Do you see what's happening nationally impacting November at all for Republicans and Democrats?
I think Connecticut Republicans are unique. We are fiscally conservative in respecting the value of the dollar and respecting the households that we represent and recognizing that each resident is not an endless pit of tax dollars that can be tapped into, and that the super rich have the flexibility that the working and middle class do not have. But at the same time, as you will see, we looked at social issues in regards to pay equity, in regards to women's health, in regards to domestic violence prevention, in essence to all the various other issues that we talked about. A Connecticut Republican stands in the middle and representing the values that reflect the people in our state. And I think that's the real essence of this election is, don't believe the hype on a national election. No politicians is ever as good as they're purported to be, nor are they ever as bad as they're being presented to be. Get to know your elected officials, take a look at their records and what they've stand. And fortunately for us, we have a record of votes and performances that we can account to. So to answer that, no, there is no semblance of a Connecticut Republican and the values that I hold on to and dearly and get tremendous advisement from my wife and my daughter and son, because my exploratory also taught me that the people throughout this entire state want a government that's collaborative, that is respectful of their wishes, and that recognizes that we have a responsibility to care for those most at risk and vulnerable, but you need to take care of the priorities. And as the co-chair of Governor Kasich's state, the presidential campaign, I think he says something fundamentally impactful to me. He says, Tony, the social issues are critical to the soul of people and how they vote. But without economic viability and sustainability and the ability to manage your own financial future, none of those issues become realized because you have no control. And those are powerful statements to me in regards to how I want to represent. We need to have economic and financial stability in our state and to be able to generate jobs and businesses in order to do the great things that the state has been known for. And we have a long, hard day ahead of us, but I'm excited. I'm always excited to serve.
Well, we wish you the best of luck in the campaign to come up.
Thank you.
All right, Tony Wong, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, and we're going to wrap things up here on CT Pulse. Nutmeg Sports is coming up at 2 o'clock, and if you missed anything, you can watch us on demand later. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Tony.